All right. Today we've got how to train to build muscle. We've got a good portion of diet out the way. You should know around your calories, around your macros, where you need to be for your specific goals. And today we're going to talk about the actual training portions. Right. So, foundations, generally, I recommend 3 to 5 days per week for weight training. If you're only able to do 1 to 2 days a week because you have a crazy schedule, that's fine. 1 to 2 days is better than no days. Some people like to go 6 days per week. Once you get past a very beginner stage, it's very hard for your body to recover from that and optimize muscle growth. So generally, I like 4 or 5 days to just give yourself a little bit more rest. First off, building a good strength base. Strength really is the foundation for everything. I always say power lifters make the best bodybuilders because you have a good strength base. And once you have that foundation, now you can lift heavier on your quote, bodybuilding movements and see more muscle growth out of it. The number one driver for muscle growth is mechanical tension. The easiest way to describe it is just lifting heavy weights through a full range of motion with control. Maximizing mechanical tension, one thing you want to focus on progressive overload, and it may not be completely linear where every session you're increasing weights or reps, but over time you want to try to increase weights or reps and keep that pushing up so you can overload the muscles and continue to grow. Controlled reps, so a slow eccentric, not over exaggerated, but just enough to ensure good form and emphasis on the target muscle. You've probably heard people say, oh, the eccentric portion is the best portion for muscle growth. That's not true. It's definitely the concentric when you're actually contracting the muscles. The slow eccentric is just important for keeping good form, putting emphasis on the target muscle. Motor unit recruitment is also a big thing for muscle growth. You can enhance this with increased stability because then you're going to take out the limiting factors like the stabilizer muscles, and you're very much isolating the muscle that you're trying to work on. And then with intensity, so intensity becomes more important once you're a little more advanced, but you should always be lifting with intensity. When you're first starting out, a lot of your muscle growth can come from those lower threshold motor units, not pushing very close to failure. But once you get to a certain point, that muscle growth will be maxed out with those lower thresholds. And now you have to grow from the higher threshold motor units, which will be activated by lifting close to failure. Getting into reps, it's originally thought that 8 to 12 reps is best range for hypertrophy. That's outdated information. A lot of even personal training certifications will still try to tell you that. But now, with the research we have, we know that the last 5 reps to failure are the reps that lead to muscle growth. That being said, if a set is taken to failure, a set of 6 reps and a set of 20 reps can cause the same amount of growth, but 20 reps leads to much more fatigue. Ideally, in a perfect world, sure, we would have every set be 5, 6 reps. So then you're limiting the amount of extra fatigue that you get, but you're maximizing muscle growth. Obviously, though, we can't do that because you have to take into account the pressure a certain movement's going to put on the joints, form and stability, and the fatigue and recovery. If you're pushing to failure, I mean, regardless, just those heavy movements of being in 5 to 6 reps is going to fatigue your central nervous system quite a bit. General guidelines, I say your main compounds, typically your first movement, 5 to 8 reps, or even 4 to 6. Supportive compounds, that 5 to 8, 6 to 9 range, and then isolation and assisting movement, 7 to 12. But unless you have pretty bad joint pain with a movement, there's not much of a reason to go over 10 reps. So you could do like a 7 to 10. Sets and rest. Weekly sets range widely based on how often you work out. General rule is said to be 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. Now, of course, if you're only hitting a muscle group 1 time per week, you're going to be super fatigued if you try to shoot for that goal. Even myself, I may only get to 6 to 7 sets muscle group per workout, sometimes a little less. I'm typically at that bottom end of the 10 sets per week with hitting everything twice. 20 sets being you're a beginner, nothing super heavy. 2 to 4 sets per exercise. If you're really focused on building something up like a bench press, a squat, sure, you can do 4 sets. Honestly, a lot of my workouts, I'm doing maybe my first movement 3 sets for a muscle group, but after that, every other movement for that group is 2 sets. Supersets, not great for muscle growth because of the fatigue that it puts on your central nervous system. Once you get through your first workout of a superset or your first exercise, you're already going to be a little bit fatigued, even if it's an opposing muscle group, just from your nervous system. So you may get a little bit less out of that second movement of the superset. If you don't have a lot of time, you can still definitely grow from doing supersets. Rest time between sets to maximize growth. Typically, you want 3 minutes for your CNS to recover between sets, your ATP to come back so you have some energy, things like that. 3 to 4 minutes for your heavier movements, your bigger compounds, some isolation work, arm work, you can knock it down to 2 minutes. Exercise selection and order. If your goal is muscle growth, we want more stabilized exercises for the motor recruitment thing I was talking about earlier. You can increase your load. Oh, and then, yep, I have it. Increase motor unit recruitment and target muscle to be the limiting factor rather than your stabilizers. You typically want to increase stability and decrease spinal loading throughout a session. You wouldn't want to put something that loads your spine like a back squat or a heavy RDL or something as like your third, fourth movement, because your spinal erector muscles that keep your spine safe are going to be fatigued and could lead to injury. Increased stability, same thing, those stabilizers will fatigue as you go throughout the workout. So typically start with your least stable heavy compound first. That being said, you do want to work weak points early in the workout if you have it. I know a lot of people maybe say their arms aren't growing well or calves aren't growing well, but they normally deem arms and calves to the end of the workout. There's no reason you can't start a workout with calves. It's not going to fatigue your spine or other things early in the workout. You can and move some of those arm exercises up to earlier in the workout too. Maybe do your first compound and then work into some arms. Don't do redundant exercises. That's something I see a lot. People might hit 2 incline pressing movements in a row, dumbbell incline, then Smith machine incline. It's the same movement, one's just more stable. So you're not hitting a different part of your chest. You're not really getting more growth out of it. You're just causing more fatigue. And a lot of times people do that with like lat movements too, or back movements in general. So just to recap, mechanical tension's the number one driver of growth. Last 5 reps to failure are the reps that lead to growth. You want to aim for 10 to 20 sets of muscle group per week. Rest about 3 minutes per set, a little less for isolation. Opt for more stabilized variations of exercise, and typically increase stability, decrease spinal loading throughout a session. That sums it up for workouts. If you would like to talk to me about a training program and getting yourself into something, if this was all a little bit confusing for you, set up a time to talk to me, ask me some questions. We can talk about maybe getting you on a program, or if not, at least you'll get some helpful tips out of it, how to structure things. So I'll leave my calendar link below to schedule things out. And if I don't see you on a call, I will talk to you in the next module.